In a peaceful village, Kael lived a simple life as a farmer. One day, while exploring the woods, he stumbled upon an ancient artifact glowing with strange energy. As he touched it, visions of destruction filled his mind, revealing the dark presence of Umbra threatening Eldoria. Overwhelmed by fear and doubt, Kael wondered if he could truly make a difference. Little did he know, this discovery would set him on a path to become a hero, as he learns about courage, friendship, and the power to change the world. In the peaceful village of Kael, life moved at a slow and steady pace. The sun rose over the fields, casting a warm glow on the simple homes where families shared laughter and dreams. Yet, beneath this serene surface, an unseen force stirred in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to break free. One day, as Kael wandered through the woods, he stumbled upon an ancient artifact half buried in the earth. Its surface shimmered, pulsating with a strange energy that seemed to call out to him. With trembling hands, he unearthed it, feeling an unfamiliar warmth spread through his fingers. What was this object, and why did it feel so alive? Suddenly, visions flooded his mind. He saw Eldoria, his beloved land, engulfed in flames and darkness. An ominous figure, cloaked in shadows, loomed over the destruction. Kael's heart raced as he recognized the being. Umbra, a name whispered in fear among the villagers. What if this creature was real? What if it was coming for them? Is this true? He whispered to himself, looking down at the artifact. Can I really do something about it? The weight of doubt pressed down on him. He was just a farmer, a simple boy with no special powers or skills. How could he, of all people, make a difference in a world filled with mythical beings and dark forces? The visions faded, leaving Kael shaken. He felt small and insignificant, as if the world had no place for someone like him. I'm just a boy, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. But deep inside, a flicker of determination ignited. Maybe he was meant for something more. But could he truly rise to the challenge? Could he face the darkness that threatened Eldoria? As he stood there, lost in thought, a rustle in the bushes broke the silence. Kael turned, his heart pounding. Out stepped a graceful figure with emerald skin and flowing hair adorned with flowers. It was Lyra, the wise dryad of the forest. Her eyes sparkled with ancient knowledge, and she seemed to radiate a calming presence. Kael, she said softly, I felt your fear from afar, the forest whispers of your heart's turmoil. Her voice was like a gentle breeze wrapping around him. You have found the artifact, haven't you? He nodded, still processing the weight of her words. I saw Eldoria in ruins and Umbra. He paused, searching for the right words. I'm just a farmer. What can I do? Lyra stepped closer, her gaze steady. You are not just a farmer. You are a part of this land. The power of Eldoria flows through you, even if you cannot see it yet. Her words sparked a flicker of hope within him. But you must be willing to embrace it. But how? Kael asked, frustration creeping into his voice. I don't even know where to start. By believing in yourself, Lyra replied, her tone firm yet encouraging. You have a purpose. Trust in your heart, and you will find the strength you need. As their conversation continued, the ancient trees stood witness, their leaves rustling with secrets of the past. Kael felt a bond forming, a connection that transcended their differences. If he could learn from her, perhaps he could face the challenges ahead. Will you help me? He asked, a sense of urgency in his voice. I need guidance to protect Eldoria. Lyra nodded. Together, we will seek the others. You are not alone in this fight. With renewed determination, Kael took a deep breath. The weight of his doubts still lingered, but with Lyra by his side, he felt the first stirrings of hope. As they ventured deeper into the forest, he realized that perhaps, just perhaps, he was on the brink of a journey that would change everything. What awaited them in the shadows of Eldoria? Only time would tell, but Kael was ready to find out. As Kael stepped into the depths of the forest, he felt a mix of excitement and fear. The tall trees loomed overhead, their leaves whispering secrets in the wind. He had left his village behind, driven by the need to find allies who could help him fight the darkness that threatened Eldoria. But the path ahead felt uncertain, and doubt clung to him like a shadow. After walking for a while, Kael paused to catch his breath. He leaned against a tree, feeling small and lost. Just then, he heard a soft rustle nearby. He turned to see a figure emerging from the underbrush. It was Lyra, the wise dryad he had heard about in stories. "Do not be afraid, young one," she said, her voice as soothing as the gentle breeze. "I am here to help you." Kael looked into her bright green eyes. "You know about the dark force, don't you? Umbra is spreading fear across the land. I feel so powerless to stop it." Lyra stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You are not powerless, Kael. Nature holds great strength, and so do you. You must learn to embrace it." "But how?" Kael asked, his voice trembling. "I am just a farmer. What can I do against such evil?" Lyra smiled gently. "Every great hero begins as an ordinary person. You must trust in yourself and the bonds you will form. Together, we can face this darkness." Encouraged by her words, Kael felt a spark of hope. "You're right. I need to find others who will join us." With renewed determination, they ventured deeper into the forest. As they walked, Lyra shared stories of her connection to the trees and the creatures that lived there. She explained how the forest was alive, each tree and plant contributing to the balance of Eldoria. "Nature has a way of healing," she said, "and we must protect it at all costs." Just then, they came across a clearing. In the center stood a giant silver wolf, his fur shimmering in the dappled sunlight. He watched them with wary eyes, his muscles tense as if ready to pounce. "Stay back," he growled, his voice deep and commanding. "I want nothing to do with you." Kael felt a shiver run down his spine. "We mean you no harm," he said, raising his hands in peace. "We are looking for allies to fight against Umbra." The wolf snorted, unimpressed. "Humans and their petty squabbles do not concern me. I have seen enough betrayal and pain to last a lifetime." Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady. "Fenris, we understand your pain, but we cannot face this darkness alone. Join us, and together we can find a way to heal our land." Fenris hesitated, his eyes flickering with doubt. "What do you know of pain? You are but a dryad and a boy." Kael took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his own fears. "I may be a boy, but I know what it feels like to be lost and afraid. I have felt the darkness creeping into my life. If we do not unite, we will all fall to Umbra." The wolf lowered his gaze, contemplating Kael's words. "And what if I join you only to be betrayed again?" "Then we will face that together," Lyra replied firmly. "You are not alone anymore. We will be your family." After a long moment of silence, Fenris finally spoke. "Family," he muttered, as if tasting the word for the first time. "Perhaps I have been too isolated. I will join you, but only if you promise to truly stand by one another." Kael smiled, his heart swelling with hope. "We promise. Together, we will protect Eldoria." As the three of them stood together in the clearing, a bond began to form. Kael felt stronger with each passing moment, knowing that he was no longer alone in his quest. They were all united by a common purpose, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. With Fenris now part of their group, they continued their journey through the forest, ready to confront the darkness that loomed over their land. Each step they took echoed with the promise of hope, love, and the strength of their newfound friendship. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows as Kael, Lyra, and Fenris continued their journey through the dense forest. The air felt heavy with unspoken worries, and the weight of their mission pressed down on each of them. They had been traveling for days, seeking allies to help them confront the dark force of Umbra. Yet, with every step, the shadows of their pasts loomed closer. As they rounded a bend, they came upon a clearing. Sitting on a mossy rock was Kael, the elf with silver hair that shimmered in the fading light. His eyes were distant, filled with a sorrow that seemed to echo through the trees. Calem felt a tug in his heart. He sensed a deep pain within Kael, one that mirrored his own fears. "Who are you?" Kael asked, his voice low and guarded as he looked up at them. "What do you want?" "We are Calem, Lyra, and Fenris," Calem replied, stepping forward. "We seek allies to stand against Umbra." Kael's expression hardened. "Allies? You think you can defeat him? You do not know the darkness he brings." Lyra stepped closer, her presence calm and steady. "We know the risks, but we also believe in the power of unity. Together, we can face any challenge." "Unity?" Kael scoffed, shaking his head. "I once believed in that, but it only led to betrayal. I lost everything. Trust is a luxury I cannot afford." Calem felt a kinship with Kael's words. He had faced doubt and fear, wondering if he could ever be more than a simple farmer. "We all have our burdens," he said softly, "but running away won't help. We need to confront our pasts, not hide from them." Kael looked at Calem, his expression softening for a moment. "You don't understand. My past is filled with shadows. I've made choices I cannot undo." "Then let us help you," Fenris said, stepping forward. The giant wolf's voice was deep but gentle. "We all have shadows. It is how we face them that defines us." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Kael's face. "You think you can just help me forget? The pain is part of who I am." "No," Calem said firmly. "The pain is part of your story, but it does not have to be your end. We can write a new chapter together." Kael studied them, weighing their words. The forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his response. Finally, he sighed, a sound filled with resignation. "You are foolish to trust so easily, but perhaps I can show you the truth of my past." With a wave of his hand, images began to swirl in the air, vibrant yet haunting. Calem and the others watched as scenes unfolded. Kael as a young elf, laughing with friends, then swiftly shifting to a dark forest where shadows whispered of betrayal. They saw a beloved companion fall, and Kael's heartache was palpable. "Umbra took everything from me," Kael said, his voice trembling with emotion. "I was too weak to save them." Lyra stepped closer, her eyes filled with compassion. "You were not weak, Kael. You were betrayed. It is not your fault." "But it is my burden to carry," Kael replied bitterly. "I cannot join you. I will only bring you harm." Fenris growled softly, his fur bristling. "You carry your past like a chain. It does not have to bind you. Join us, and we can break those chains together." A flicker of hope sparked in Kael's eyes. "You really believe we can face Umbra?" Calem nodded, determination etched on his face. "Together, we can overcome anything, not just for ourselves, but for the future of Eldoria." After a long moment of silence, Kael finally nodded, albeit hesitantly. "Very well, I will join you. But know this, I do not trust easily." "Trust is built over time," Lyra responded gently, "and we will prove ourselves to you." As they stood in the clearing, a new bond began to form. They may have carried their pasts like shadows, but together they could find the light. Calem felt a surge of hope. They were no longer just three individuals, but a team ready to face the darkness ahead. The journey through the dense forest led Calem and his friends to a village that lay in despair. Smoke curled from the rooftops, and the air was thick with the sound of cries and chaos. The villagers, frightened and lost, scrambled to gather their belongings, unsure of what to do next. As they approached, the group felt a heavy weight in their hearts. They knew they had to act quickly. "Look at them," Lyra said, her voice trembling with emotion. "They are about to lose everything." Fenris, standing tall beside her, frowned. "We can't save everyone, Lyra. There's a sacred sanctuary nearby that could also be in danger. If we don't protect it, we might lose something even more important." Kael felt the tension rise among them. A difficult choice loomed ahead. "What if we divide our efforts?" he suggested, trying to think clearly amidst the turmoil. "We can help the villagers while keeping watch over the sanctuary." Kael, who had been quiet, finally spoke up. "But what if it's too late? What if we can't save either?" The doubt in Kael's voice echoed Kalem's own fears. He looked at his friends, their faces marked with uncertainty. "We have to believe we can make a difference. Every life matters, and we can't let fear guide our choices." Lyra nodded, her eyes shining with determination. "Kael is right. We need to unite. We can't let darkness win by making us choose one life over another." As the group discussed their options, Fenris took a step back, a shadow of loneliness crossing his face. "You all talk about strength and unity, but what if I fail you? What if I cannot protect anyone?" His voice was a low growl, full of anguish. "Fenris," Kael said softly, stepping closer. "You are not alone in this. We will face this together. You bring strength that we need. We can't do this without you." The giant wolf looked at Kael, his golden eyes reflecting vulnerability. "I have been alone for so long. I fear that I am not enough." In that moment, Kael saw his own fears mirrored in Fenris's eyes. "We all have our doubts. We all have a past that haunts us," Kael replied. "But it is our bond that can help us rise above it. We are stronger together." With a heavy sigh, Fenris nodded. "I will trust you. I will fight." The group shared a moment of silence, their hearts beating as one. They then turned their attention back to the village, where the sounds of despair grew louder. Kael felt a spark of courage ignite within him. "Let's split up, just as we discussed. We can save the villagers and protect the sanctuary. We will return to each other when it's safe." "Agreed," Lyra said, her voice steady now. "Let's move." As they rushed into action, the group split into two. Kael and Lyra ran towards the villagers, while Fenris and Kael headed toward the sanctuary. The urgency pushed them forward, each step echoing the need to act swiftly. Upon reaching the village, Kael found himself in the midst of chaos. Villagers stumbled over one another, clutching their children and belongings. A woman cried out for her husband, who had gone missing in the panic. "Help, please!" she shouted, her voice breaking. Kalem's heart ached at her despair. He could not ignore the suffering around him. "Stay calm," he called out, trying to be a pillar of strength. "We are here to help you." Lyra moved gracefully through the crowd, her presence calming. "We need to gather everyone in the square. We will find your loved ones and get you to safety," she instructed gently. As the villagers began to follow her, Kael felt a surge of purpose. He was no longer just a farmer, he was a protector. Together, they moved towards the square, hoping to bring order to the chaos. Meanwhile, at the sanctuary, Fenris and Kael faced their own challenges. Shadows loomed near the sacred ground, and the air grew thick with dread. The weight of their pasts pressed heavily upon them, but they knew that they had to protect what remained sacred. "Whatever happens, we stand together," Fenris growled, his resolve hardening. Kael nodded, a glimmer of hope returning to his eyes. Together. As the sun began to set, casting an orange glow over the village, Kael realized that their choices would define them. They were united in purpose and heart, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The dilemmas of their hearts were many, but together, they would find a way to overcome them. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the forest, Kael and his friends pressed deeper into Eldoria. The air felt heavy with unspoken truths, and the tension among them grew. Each step carried the weight of their fears, especially for Kael. "How much longer until we reach the heart of Eldoria?" Kael asked, glancing at Kael, who walked a few paces behind. The elf's face was a mask of concentration, but his eyes betrayed a storm of emotions. "I do not know," Kael replied softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "But the closer we get, the more I feel something pulling at me." Fenris, walking beside Kael, let out a low growl. "You mean the darkness? It is growing. I can feel it in my bones." His silver fur shimmered in the fading light, but his expression was tense, reflecting the unease in the group. Lyra, sensing the heaviness in the air, stepped forward. "We must stay united. Whatever lies ahead, we face it together. Remember, our strength is in our bond." Her voice was calm and steady, a balm for their anxious hearts. As they ventured further, the trees began to thin, revealing a clearing bathed in eerie twilight. In the center stood an ancient stone altar, covered in strange markings. Kael halted, his eyes widening in recognition. "This place, I know it." "What do you mean?" Kael asked, his curiosity piqued. Kael took a deep breath, as if preparing to share a great burden. "This altar is linked to Umbra. It is where my past intertwines with his darkness. I was once part of a prophecy, a promise made long ago, but I turned away from it. I betrayed my kin." Fenris frowned. "You mean to say you are connected to Umbra? How can we trust you?" His voice was low, filled with doubt. Kael's shoulders slumped, and he looked down. "I do not expect you to trust me. My choices have led to pain, but I want to change. I want to fight for Eldoria, not against it." Lyra stepped closer to Kael, her eyes softening. "We all have shadows in our past, Kael. What matters is what we choose to do now." A silence fell over the group. Kael could sense the tension, and his heart raced. The revelation about Kael felt like a crack in their unity. Would they be able to overcome this? Suddenly, Fenris's ears perked up, and he growled again. "Listen, someone is coming!" Before they could react, dark figures emerged from the shadows, their eyes glowing with malice. Umbra's minions, twisted creatures of shadow, surrounded them. "Stand together!" Kael shouted, adrenaline surging through him. He felt the weight of their shared fear, but also the spark of determination. As the creatures lunged, Kael yelled, "Fight for each other! We cannot let Umbra win!" Lyra summoned vines from the ground, entangling the nearest minions. "We must show them our strength," she shouted, her voice fierce. With a swift movement, Fenris leaped into the fray, his powerful body knocking the creatures away. "We will not back down," he roared, defending his friends with all his might. But amidst the chaos, Kael hesitated. He stood frozen, memories of his past flooding his mind. Could he truly fight against the darkness that once tempted him? "Kael," Kael called, desperation in his voice. "We need you! You belong with us!" Those words broke through Kael's conflict. He took a deep breath, drawing on the bond they shared. With newfound resolve, he joined the battle. As they fought together, Kael felt a shift within him. The shadows around them began to fade as their trust strengthened. They fought not just against the minions, but against their own doubts and fears. When the last creature fell, the clearing fell silent. Breathing heavily, they gathered in a circle, each of them processing what had just unfolded. "I was afraid," Kael admitted, his voice trembling, "afraid of what I might become. But you showed me that I can choose differently." Fenris nodded, his expression softening. "We all have darkness in us, but together, we can face it." Kael looked at each of his friends, feeling a sense of unity blossom within him. No matter what lies ahead, we will face it together. Our choices define us, and we can choose light over darkness." As they stood together, a flicker of hope began to spark in the heart of Eldoria, igniting a flame that would guide them through the shadows to come. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the battlefield where Kael and his friends stood ready to face Umbra. The air was thick with tension, and the ground trembled beneath their feet as dark clouds gathered overhead. Kael felt the weight of his friend's hopes resting on his shoulders. He took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing heart. "Are you all ready?" Kael asked, his voice steady despite the fear swirling inside him. Lyra, standing beside him, nodded. Her green eyes sparkled with determination. "We have come too far to turn back now. Together, we can face anything." Fenris, the giant silver wolf, growled softly, his fur bristling with energy. "I will not let Umbra take anything else from us. We fight for our home." Kael, the troubled elf, looked at the ground, his expression clouded. "What if I cannot control the darkness within me? What if I become like him?" Lyra stepped closer to Kael, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You are not Umbra. You have friends who believe in you, and that is your strength. Remember that." As they prepared for the battle, the ground shook violently, and Umbra emerged from the shadows, a figure of pure darkness. His eyes glowed with malice, and his voice echoed like thunder. "You dare challenge me, foolish beings? You will regret this choice." Kael felt a surge of anger. "We are not afraid of you, Umbra. You will not destroy Eldoria." With a flick of his wrist, Umbra sent a wave of dark energy toward them. Kael shouted, "Now!" As he raised his shield, a protective barrier formed from the lessons Lyra had taught him about nature's strength. The wave crashed against the shield, and the impact knocked them back, but they quickly regained their footing. Fenris lunged forward, his powerful jaws snapping at Umbra, while Kael unleashed arrows imbued with light. "This is for my past," he cried, determination coursing through him. The arrows struck true, but Umbra only laughed, his form shifting and twisting. "You think you can defeat me with your pathetic light?" Umbra sneered. "I am the darkness. I am eternal." Kalem's heart raced, but he remembered the bond they had formed. "We are more than just individuals," he shouted. "Together, we are stronger than you." With that, he called upon the strength of his friends. "Fenris, now!" The wolf charged at Umbra again, drawing the creature's attention. At the same time, Lyra raised her arms, summoning vines from the earth to ensnare Umbra's feet. "Hold him, Fenris! We can do this!" she urged. Kael, finding his courage, joined them. "I will not let my past define me." He aimed his arrows with precision, striking at Umbra's core. As the battle raged on, Kael felt the darkness creeping at the edges of his mind, whispering doubts and fears. "What if we fail?" he wondered. But then he looked at his friends, fighting valiantly beside him. Their courage ignited a spark of hope within him. In that moment, Kael understood that they could not just fight Umbra with strength. They needed to confront the darkness in a different way. "We need to reach him," he shouted, his voice breaking through the chaos. "Umbra, you do not have to be alone." Umbra paused, his eyes narrowing. "What do you know of loneliness?" he hissed. "I know what it feels like to be lost," Kael replied, stepping forward. "But we can choose to rise above it. You can choose to join us, to find light again." The darkness flickered, uncertainty etched on Umbra's face. For a brief moment, it seemed as if the malevolence around him wavered. Kael took a chance. "We can help you find peace. You don't have to be a monster." A tense silence fell over the battlefield. Umbra's form began to shift, shadows swirling around him. The darkness cracked, revealing glimpses of light within. "Peace?" he echoed, his voice softer now, tinged with confusion. Yes, Kael urged, his heart racing as he took another step closer. Together, we can heal. For a moment, it felt as if time stood still. The battle faded, and only the possibility of understanding remained. Umbra's darkness faded away, revealing a glimmer of the being he once was. In that climactic moment, hope surged through the air. Kael realized that true victory did not come from defeating an enemy, but from embracing the light within, even in the darkest of places. Share this story if you believe that understanding and compassion can conquer even the darkest challenges. Leave a comment about a moment when reaching out to someone made a difference in your life, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales like this one.